Hello and welcome to the space that gives you inspiration on work, life, and how to balance the two. This is actually our final week in our final month on the life series. But don't get sad. I know how much you guys have enjoyed this series. Next month and for the next 4 months, we'll be working on the balance, how to balance our work and how to balance our life. And we'll be talking things like work-life management, work-life choices and planning and schedules and routines and all of those nice things that can help us manage our work and our life. But this week, we continue our series on some of those feelings and emotions that shows you that it's time to change how you're doing your life and therefore preempt you to make sure you're a part of our balance series, our work-life balance series, which will happen in the next 4 months. Now, the final feeling and emotion that we have is anxiety. Anxiety. Immediately you're feeling anxiety, girl, honey, boy, dude, there's something that you need to change with how you live your life. So grab your cup of coffee, like I am, or your cup of tea, get your notepad, get your pen, and let's get writing. So, what exactly is anxiety? I'm glad you asked. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. It's worry, it's nervousness, it's unease about something. And now the anxiety I want to talk about is not because you're anxious about a certain project, you're anxious about a certain job, you're anxious about your child's health, you're anxious about, no, that's not the one that we're talking about today, because that is very certain in terms of what exactly you're being anxious about. The anxiety I'm talking about is the one where you're anxious, generally anxious about life, about the unknown. Like you just generally live every day anxious, not knowing what's going to, like you're just in a place of anxiety. This general anxiety is the one that I would like to talk about today. What are some of the causes? One is life pressures. The truth is, every time we walk out of our doors, I feel like we're going into a battle. We're going into a battle called life, right? And you have no idea what to expect. And sometimes in the language that my, brothers and sisters use, life can melee you, yeah? Like life can beat you up, right? And so when you go out the door, you come back with that beaten feeling, right? And come back into your home. Go back the next day and the next day. Some days you get victories, some days you're beaten, some days you're not, sometimes you're beating up someone. The way life treats you is not as it does everybody else, because for you, the life pressures become too intense. You don't see life for what it truly is, which is to be lived. Whether you're being meleed or you're meleeing life, or you are meleeing people, or people are meleeing you, or for you, life is so, I want to say so serious, but you don't see it the way the rest of us see it. Every time I'm leaving my home, I feel like I'm going into battle, I'm going into war, and anything could happen. Every day I pray for a victory, but I know that some days can be tough. And then I come back home knowing like, man, that day was, that was a day, wow. But I come back into the solitude of my home, knowing that that is what life gave me that particular day. So life pressures, bills to pay, jobs to do, tasks to finish can cause you anxiety. Overwhelm, we've already talked about overwhelm. So if you've missed that video, please get into my description box and get the link to the video on overwhelm. Another thing that could cause you anxiety is guilt. I've already talked about guilt. So if you missed that video, we'll leave the link in the description box or maybe up here. I'm not too sure where, either one, maybe this corner. will leave you the link to watch the video on guilt. Another thing that might lead you to anxiety is self-sabotage. Again, I've also done that video, so I'm going to also leave it right up here or in the description box so you can watch the video on self-sabotage. Now, overwhelm, guilt, and sabotage, self-sabotage can lead you to be anxious. Anxious about life, anxious because you feel like you're not doing right with your children or you're not doing enough at your job, anxious because every time you want to, for example, lose weight, you're still sleeping in bed at the time when you should be going to the gym. So those three, which I've already talked about, I don't want to talk any further. Another thing that could cause you anxiety is stress. Physical stress, emotional stress. You're in a relationship that's not making you happy, or all of those things can cause you a certain level of stress emotionally, intellectually. You're doing schoolwork and you're really stressed out. You're stressed at your job. You're stressed out in the relationship you're in. That can cause you that feeling of worry and nervousness or unease about the future and how uncertain it will be. Another thing that could cause you anxiety is fatigue. You could just be constantly or in a constant state of fatigue. This usually happens to moms, especially young moms or new moms, and also happens a lot to men, especially young men that have just gotten married. You're always in a state of working, and so you get fatigued. And when I say you're in a state of working, I don't mean physical work or work at the job, but even when you're sleeping, you could be thinking about work. Even when you're resting or should be resting, you're thinking about work. All of those could cause fatigue that can lead then to anxiety. And then lastly, you might have a natural disposition. And this one is possibly the most painful. You might have a natural disposition for anxiety, and you can't help it. Your mom can't help it. Your dad can't help it. You've seen it all your life. That's all you've ever known in your life because your parents were always anxious people. They treated life with a level of anxiety. They refused you from playing outside because you might fall down. They refused you from crossing the road because, well, you might get knocked. They refuse you from using a boulder because you might have an accident. All of which are very, very true, and can happen. But there's people who take it to a whole other level. For example, your dad can't allow you to use a boulder, so he always has to come and pick you up to take you where you have to go. That can be a bit unsettling and might be a good indication that maybe your parents had a lot of anxiety and could explain why you're also feeling the same way. So those are the causes. So what are the signs that you might be anxious? One, you have feelings of nervousness and restlessness, and you're constantly feeling tense. No matter how relaxing a situation is, you're just waiting for the next bad thing to happen, which is another sign you have a certain level as feeling of impending doom. You're just like, you're in a pool, you're playing, you're having fun, things are good, but you're in your mind, you're like, my God, someone might fall in that pool and then drown. Oh my dear, what would happen if this, as in that you probably are suffering with anxiety, or might even have gotten to a place where you have anxiety disorder. Another thing is probably you have feelings of danger, of panic, of dread, and a certain fear of death and accidents. You're just in that place where for you anything wrong could happen, and when it happens, it's going to be bad. It's going to be horrible, right? So that horrid feeling, that is a sign that you could be struggling or could be having anxiety. Another is a rapid heart rate. The rate of your heartbeat is extremely fast, and you can feel it in your rib cage. It's just, I think for a time I suffered from it. I had a lot of anxiety during this period of the coronavirus because there were so many deaths in my home, and every time I would hear the phone ring, my heart would pump. My heart would pump so much, and that was for me a clear, quick sign that I was anxious and I was going through anxiety. Another one is heavy or rapid breathing. And guys, there was a point I was so sick, I had rapid breathing, that we went to the doctors thinking I had the virus. And yet it was anxiety. I was really, really, really anxious. I felt like I couldn't breathe, which is actually another sign. Panic attacks, a very huge sign that you're going through anxiety. In fact, panic attacks are probably the last end, the tail end, just before you fall into a depression, or as you've entered, or when you're in a depression. So panic attacks, and your heart is fast, your breathing is fast, you're sweating, like you can feel beads of sweat coming down the back of your back and in between your chest. Those are all signs and symptoms that you have anxiety. There's also trembling and muscle twitching. Now, I've never experienced this one, but I know someone who does. Like, you feel a certain muscle that's twitching, and just like, what's going on? Or you're trembling. As for the tremble, I've always felt the tremble, especially that time when we thought I'd gotten the virus. I was really almost always trembling. When I would get a call, I would start to tremble because I feared that there was something wrong. For those of you that have been watching my vlogs, you know that period when there were so many deaths in my home and in my family. And you know for a fact that there's certain things that I did, which I want to talk about, how to overcome the anxiety. And I'll talk about it a bit later. You could also be having trouble focusing or thinking clearly about anything other than that thing which you're worried about. So yes, you can be worried about the deaths that happen in your family, but then now you're failing to think about other things like your business, which also happened to me, and which happens to me when I get those anxiety or panic attacks, or okay, I don't get panic attacks, but when I get really anxious. And so all of those are feelings, are signs of anxiety that you need to watch out for. So how can you overcome anxiety? Like I shared with you guys, I recently went through that, and if you've been watching my vlogs, unfortunately I didn't tell you that I was going through anxiety every time I'd get a call from my brother, from my mom, see the word RIP in our group, in our family group. I would immediately just get anxious, like, now who else passed away? So I knew that I was anxious, and one of the things that I did was I stopped. I absolutely stopped everything. I didn't work that week. You guys saw that. I didn't work that week. I went back into what fills my emotional tank. I went back, I sang at church, I indulged with my children, I spent time with the husband, I did more self-care. I drew back from everything so that I could recuperate, knowing fully well what I was going through. So that anxiety, one of the things that you want to do is to stop. And once you've stopped, get help, either through a counselor or through group therapy or God. Now, for me, mine is God. I will always go back to that place. I will always go back to God. I'll always read on what the scriptures say about anxiety. What does the scripture say about worrying? And it's very, very clear. It says, be anxious about nothing. Not anxious about some things, not anxious about, no, be anxious about nothing, right? So just getting that and meditating on that word, right? Thinking about it, saying it over and over to myself. I would affirm myself. I would say to myself, be anxious. Be not anxious about those phone calls. Be not anxious about those messages. When you open your phone, no matter the message that you have, all things have worked together for your good. So I kept affirming myself with the scriptures, with what the word says about the situation that I was in. So affirmation is extremely important. Say those words to yourself. Say those words that will help you not be anxious. Say them to yourself over and over and over again. Say them in the morning like a drug. You know that 1 times 3, 3 times 3. Mine is a 3 times 3. Say to yourself 3 times a day, 3 times. And then every time you feel it, almost like a Panadol. Okay? So affirm yourself, but also meditate. I found so much peace in meditation. I'm now starting to enjoy I've always enjoyed my 4 a.m. As all of you know, I wake up 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. I'm having time with God. But I've started to enjoy, because on Sundays, I do 7 a.m.s outside near our home. Our neighbor has a huge chunk of land. It's probably an acre of land, and he has birds of all sorts of nature, all types of animals. There's monkeys, and so when I sit outside on Sunday morning, I can hear the birds chirping, and it has helped me to just start the day from a place of calm. But now I'm starting to want that same effect, which I usually get on Sundays. I'm now starting to want to have it through the week. So it looks like I might add on some more quiet time for myself. So get some quiet time, some meditating time. When you sit down, keep quiet. Listen to what God has to say about the situation that you're in. Another one is to exercise, and do simple exercise, please, because any other exercise will make you even more anxious. Just walk. Just really walk. Get up and just walk. Walk for hours on end. Walk to as far as you can go, and then tell yourself you'll come back on a boulder. You know what I'm saying? But walk, exercise. And another one that you want to do, which is what I absolutely love, is to live in the moment. Tell yourself, don't worry if somebody is going to fall into the pool. Just live in the moment of seeing all your friends around who have been ravaged by a virus but are here smiling and laughing and enjoying. Live in the moment of drinking your cup of black tea and enjoy it. Live in the moment of filming a YouTube video and enjoy it. Indulge in the moments of life. Indulge in the moments of life. Most recently, and this is off script, most recently I was talking to a friend of mine whose dad has Alzheimer's and he's losing his memory. How sad it is for many of us that we live a life of Alzheimer's without the disease, not living the moment. So take the time to live the moment. We've come to the end of the live series. Guys, I'd like you to like, comment, and subscribe if any of these topics in the live series have changed you or have changed your perception. Share with people. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. And now we'll head on over to our work-life balance series. The balance in this thing called work and life. Until next time.